that would want to change the situation, right? But we may have different difficulties in different difficult situations. But we find people with similar issues. We work together, so those can be some sort of translocal collaborations or associations. But in your case, this art residency, whether all those places, do they deal with the same problem in society? Does those activities help people to deal with the difficulties in their conditions? That is my question. I raise it for my students.
Well, it's an unending discussion between art and activists, of course. And some people say that art doesn't deal with issues as such as taking the issues as a heavy thing, but can deal with the issues without a need to talk about it or address it in an experiential way, sometimes with humor and something with deadly seriousness, so that there's a difference. I think the biggest challenge for me is to understand, to not take in space, but prepare space that other people who want to speak but cannot speak use the space. That's for me and from my idea of how art can evolve. Important, how to not take the initiative, how not to say like, I have space, please come. So the initiative of self-speaking, where can you find that and how can you work together from somebody's own speech and not from you helping somebody's speech. That's a challenge.
Sure.
And I think not knowing is okay, but you need to try different methods, try and keep the humor as well, that you can try, because comfort is an important thing. To be comfortable, but also to find comfort in other zones. It's important. If you don't have comfort, and I had no financial comfort for a long while, it drags you down. You have to revive in certain ways. So to have a comfort, not in an economical way, but a comfort of feeling well is important, and you can also make other people feel comfortable, and then it's easier to share things. It's not a total question, but
Sure.
it was
I want to see other hands. Maybe we can raise hands and express our questions, and then yeah, everyone should get a chance to speak up. Do you need mic?
It's fine. So I was wondering, like, how do you think that an anthropological insight or an insight from art, how does it differ? So do you distinguish between anthropological insight to what you say about neighborhood, community and all, and being an artist? So I was just wondering about that.
one thing. I'm a single artist of the millions of artists that there exist. That's an important one. And second, I think we can learn a lot of an anthropologist, and an anthropologist can learn a lot of an artist. And maybe, for me, walking together is more important than to make a work at this moment. To learn from each other, not because of the classical roles of anthropologists can give me insight in how to see a community and how to understand it, and an artist can visualize it for me, but maybe just for the opposite. And if I talk for the context of the Netherlands, higher education, university education, is narrowed down to specific practices, and maybe in your experience is much more broader. That's why I also prefer like to walk around and meet people in Indonesia, because they have a better understanding of a practice is a diverse practice. It's not like I'm an anthropologist and this is my line. So that's, but we in the Netherlands lack of a too hyper professionality. I don't know if that answers your question. Maybe partly, but
No, it's fine.
Other question? Yeah. I'll try my best to form my question because it's a little bit abstract. There are two main things that really came up to my mind. Like, for example, regarding to what Professor Joyce has just said, I think when I look at alternative art space, as soon as I learn about these spaces, I think about artist versus activist, or artist versus social worker. I guess I try to think about what are the skills that artists have, so we are not social worker or not activist. Because oftentimes what these artists do, they resemble what the social worker or the activists do. But I know it's not the same, but it's also why it's so time and energy consuming, because it's labor. And I think that labor, it's being translated into what you just called willingness. And I think it's like, and I think when some artists, they say, oh, you need to be more willing, you need to have this attitude and willingness to be so involved and engaged, but then there's like another voice in my head thinking, oh, maybe it's another form of exploitation for the artist, because you have to learn about writing a book, and you have to be in a different, completely field. It could be soft skill, and sometimes it could be hard skills. And I think it's even harder for artists to learn something new, like hard skills programming, or like I see some artists, they work with different mediums, and when they cannot deal with a type of hard skill, they outsource that thing, like hire a programmer, hire someone to do this and do that, and that's sometimes it's a collective, or sometimes it's a collaboration. But then it's even like it's more complex. Like, how does this collective or collaboration run? How does the money and finance runs in this collaboration? Because it's labor at the end of the day, and I don't think we can ignore the fact that we are spending a lot of efforts, time, knowledge. And that's one thing. I'm not sure how I can form that into a question. It's just something that I notice, and I think a lot of artists, they call it willingness, and it's just like it hurts me to think that. And then another thing is the use of space. I'm not too sure I'm not sure what it's like in Indonesia. And I think it's related to the willingness as well. When you think about the use of space, the physical space, it's almost like, oh, that's how you put it. Oh, we prepare a space for people to speak. But then how do you attract these people? Like, these people, they just don't come in. And of course, you're doing a lot of projects and workshops to connect with these people. But then at the same time, you are very limited. There are some sort of people that you can never reach. I mean, in this lifespan, maybe in another life, I don't know. It's just, we are limited. Artists, they are limited, and it's just, I think it's also, I don't want to say not good or not fair. I think it's not fair for artists to think of space, oh, we need to open a space so we can prepare a space, like almost like a safe space, or a space that alternative so dialogues can happen, but there are always some sort of people that maybe you want to connect with, but they don't feel allowed, or they just never happen to be in that space. But does that mean that you cannot open a dialogue or a space with them? Not necessarily, but I think we are so stuck with being a physical space. Like, yeah, and I think it has to do with geography, like the location of the space, even the tone, the style even the way you dress, it really give the neighbors an impression like, oh, are you approachable? I mean, especially being a foreigner, it should be more obvious to like, maybe, I know some people, they try to dress down a little bit or to blend in, but then I think it's not fair for the artist as well, that you have to like add with all the laboring, learning soft skills, hard skills, and then blending in. I think there's sort of a danger in it, like artists, they cannot find their place. It's interesting, there's so many artists in residency projects all around the world, and artists are like migrants, like going to places, but again, they're also rootless. So it's just, yeah, I think it's okay to be positive, but also I think we need to rename the word willingness. Willingness, yeah.
Just a second. I know some students need to go because they have a class in the evening, so you may leave. But I think we can continue our discussion for maybe 10 more minutes, or so that we can get adequate discussion. So, but before you address the question, I would like to have hear more comments or questions. Okay, so that maybe in the end you can address them in a general way. Questions or comments from the floor?
I do have a question for you, but because I have to go now, so maybe may I email you later? Thank you.
Other questions? Do you? Question? No? All right. Yeah. Okay.
I have to say again, I'm one of the million artists, and I'm offended quite often by colleague artists that I give up the art practice, or that I say that an art building can also serve for other things. Because I think in an art building, if there's vacant place for a doctor, maybe I share much more with a doctor than an artist, but I'm often attacked that I give away space of art. And a bigger community thinks that working with people as an artist brings in less good artwork. So people praise artists for doing very good research together, working together with sociologists or whatever, and bringing that in a beautiful installation where people are amazed of the beauty of it. But where I question, what exactly do you bring in? You bring in a concept, neglecting the whole biotope of the people that top into your works. So there's in the art is often a fierce debate of being giving away the speech that art has, because art can imagine people and can bring them somewhere through the materialization that we know. So that's one part of it. And if you go to the Taichung Asian art biennial, you see a lot of beautiful works, of which I question, what exactly are you talking about and what do you bring in? That's one part. I like the different thoughts that you bring in, although not clear. That's the point that we start from. I have also a lot of questions and formulations that are not clear. And what I try to do is I bring in my vulnerability. I'm asked for a commission of public art in Rotterdam. I sit there, and I just sit there as my studio practice. I try to say like, okay, we don't program, we don't come up with 5 names and we choose one to bring a sculpture in public space. I said no, we have to walk around and exactly understand who is living there and who is invisible and what kind. I have some perspectives that I can understand, but I have a lot of perspectives I cannot understand. So we as a commission need to exercise that before we go say, this art is going to do that. Because maybe we don't need an artist, and maybe a certain specific person or community can make a very good artwork. So, for more than a year I'm in these commissions. If in this commission there's a new member that need to come in, and we are already with 5 men, white men, and 1 chair and 1 secretary, who both are women, and I'm angry that we choose another white man from the art scene and not from something else. And I'm trying to find, instead of stepping down, which is easy, I try to stay and find tactics. How can I disturb this meeting? Because it's impossible that we ask another man from the art world, because we already have that perspective. It's not bad that it's man and that it's white man, but we already have that perspective. To bring another one, it's unacceptable. First, we can have other perspectives than art in that commission, because it talks about public space. We don't need another man. We don't need another man from a certain generation. So I bring myself in a. I don't say I'm doing the right thing, because probably it's better to step out and find my energy in other things. But I exercise myself in how can I address this topic in a good way that things move. But the thing is, I get hard words. I don't arrive to change this decision, which I think it's a very stupid decision that we should not do. But I, as an artist, I can do that. I, as a straight man, can do that, because I'm not attacked on the street or in a daily life practice as a gay person, or as a black man, or as a transgender woman, or whatever. So I think I should practice that. And of course, everybody has his own or her own reason to do. That's my context, so I do that in my context. It's to understand where you live and what your position is, what your agency is, and you can exercise there. And I think that's very important. That's also why I like, maybe it's not a clear answer, or it's not a clear train of thought, but that's okay. We start from there, and we start from our own context. So that's one part of my answer. What you say, like, what's the artist and the activist or the sociologist, it's an important thing as well. I heard from an activist working here with Indonesian migrants that he's sometimes fed up with artists consulting him about his projects and using that for an artwork. And maybe the artwork is good and address the right themes, but it's not good to just make a project about it. It's good to make things livable, to make things imaginative, to not always address this is wrong, we need to do this, we need to do this. Like to bring a narrative that talks about other things, but bring in the topics. So that's good, and that's the power that artists have, I think. But we have to understand that contemporary art is not only about an exhibition or producing of works, just as a neoliberal system does, a production of works and a production of labor, and unpaid labor often, also for ourselves, but the people that we involve to, and not acknowledging their works. So what we lack in art is, first, to understand that a practice or a work can take longer than 1 month, or that a painting takes longer than 1 week, but that it's maybe about 5 years till the work is there. And you can have little works on the go to somewhere. So the understanding that the period of time, that it doesn't end and begin somewhere, that's important. And to understand that the object is not a thing, and that's what I plead for, is we should better understand the ecology of that object. From where does that object come? How is it built? With whom is it built? And how to share that. So acknowledging the sociologist, acknowledging the people around you who are building together. And another thing is the thing of space is there's a concrete thing for me. Space is not in a concrete sense. Any space is a place. So it can be here, but it can be also through what you wear, or just go to the 7-Eleven and make it bankrupt. So it's much more open. And I think I'll leave it with that. But maybe you have a following up. No. But I've become a little bit like not angry, but like wait. There's a point, a stance point, like with this commission I am, and it was good that you triggered that to show
finances, how finances run in these collaborations. You mean how these finances run?
No, in the commission that I mentioned, where I'm in the public art commission that I'm in, you triggered that to show that it's understanding the context where you act and where you live in. It's from there that you can work, and of course you cannot just work with a neighbor just like that. Finances, that's another thing that I cannot tackle. How to overcome finances. But for myself, I found a method that I wanted, that I thought I will never earn my money with teaching, with art. So I need other ways of my income. I teach, and the house that we run is free. We don't ask for funds or anything. So it's from my own budget, and that's more than fine. Time is a very difficult kind of thing, but then I think about Indonesian artist friends who work, I don't know how they do, but they do so much, and then I think, oh, Reinaart, of course you have time, you can do that. You should be available, and available, and available.
Well, if some of you are interested, you can stay and discuss with Reinaart. I would say that we are actually, every one of us, situating ourselves at a different locale. We have our own commitment, our own problematics. So we could do that through artistic way. We could do that through other multiple forms of knowledge production. Perhaps we could do our thesis and then implement that with a documentary or a cinematic script or a theatrical performance. So I think even intellectual thesis requires artistic and creative touch and elaborations. So, but in terms of form and media, of course, it's different. Okay, but even if it's just not just it's art or digital art or visual art or other forms of art like dance and film and so on, they are also proposing problems, proposing issues, and trying to think through and trying to elaborate through their own ways. Okay, humor is good. Wit or sarcasm could be good at some point, but there are also other different ways. So I really appreciate Reinaart's concept of this making it a citizen thing instead of a very fixed conventional cultural thing or art thing, so that we know why we are engaging with this project, okay, whatever form it is. But that project, even if it's only an art installation or a thesis that you might also all have in mind, that might require anthropological, historical, social inquiry, but also artistic dimensions to open up some space. You may also want to work on documentaries and installations or art exhibition and so on. So this is actually what you suggested. This is a place we get together voluntarily. We commit ourselves to our discussion, but we commit ourselves also to our own personal project. Okay, I just need to end it here because we are pushing them or encouraging them to move into their own project. They've been discussing with me, so any chance for me to reiterate that could be helpful for them or for me. But I think it gave us a very good inspiration that anything can be done in this kind of alternative way, and also to think to work with other people, neighboring, even though they are not our neighbors, but still we can open up the space and make space. Yeah. Thank you so much, yeah, for making the trip and the talk. Yeah. But for others, students, people, if you are interested, you can stay and just chat a little bit more. Yeah, because some of them are working on art and some other projects. So, okay, but we end here,
I'm
right?
at any time interested in what you do.
Okay.
Just contact me
Right.
if you think it makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm also happy to hear your concerns and how you deal with it.
Okay. Yeah. Let's thank you.